all of their endpoints every 4 months.
So Sam's grand reveal is that, hey guys, GPT-5 is actually already here, more or less. Hand wavy, hand wavy, hand wavy. And what GPT-5 will be is an AI model that decides which AI model you should use of these 1,900 different models. So conceptually,
GPT-5 isn't even a new, well, maybe it is a new model, but it's going to be,
it's a
there
router.
are a bunch of other.
They might be self-aware.
GPT-5, it's more or less been announced at this point, and there isn't like an official date. But are you excited? I mean, are you even sleeping at night now that Sam has finally uttered the words GPT-5?
I'm surprised it's GPT-5. It's not another GPT-40-03-mini.
Well, those aren't stopping. That train's still coming, and in fact,
isn't this him basically acknowledging that we all got sick of there being 30 different versions of what's effectively a GPT quote-unquote 4, and people are wondering, where's 5? Where's 5? You keep having new models. Why isn't it 5?
I mean, I think this
is... It's not 5 because they're not calling it that yet, but now they're going to.
Yeah, I think what this is him acknowledging defeat to some degree, right? They were trying to train something that was demonstrably significantly better, a leap where you're like, oh my gosh,
this is obviously better than
he's doing this.
4. Which 03, I think, was supposed to be kind of that first real attempt at it, right?
Maybe, or 01, or
right.
I think there's been many attempts at it.
They skipped over 02. We didn't even get an 02.
Well, that was apparently there's a company 02, and they didn't want to do it. But yes, they've tried many times. They failed every time. They keep releasing all these other models, which each have like one little thing that they. No, I don't even want to. That's a little bit too dismissive. But they have an area where they are strongest. But there's literally. In the consumer interface, like 9 different models to choose from. And then on the developer side, there's even more because you can go through the different versions of those 9 models.
Yeah.
And it's
kind of exhausting. Which one do I use? Well, frankly, use the latest or cheapest. And like all of these other ones are just there for legacy because the developers don't want to be updating all of their endpoints every 4 months.
So Sam's grand reveal is that, hey guys, GPT-5 is actually already here, more or less. Hand wavy, hand wavy, hand wavy. And what GPT-5 will be is an AI model that decides which AI model you should use of these 1,900 different models. So
GPT-5 isn't even a new, well, maybe it is a new model, but it's going to be...
It's a
there
router.
Are a bunch of other
right.
Here's a bunch of models depending on the question. If you're asking for just like, come up with a recipe idea, okay, we'll just use one of the old ones. It'll be quick.
And but it's a good idea. It's something they should do. It's just it's not the GPT-5 we were told about.
Right. Well, I think that's because we aren't at a point where that consumer product that is a chat interface has anywhere left to go that is a quantum leap forward. Mm-hmm. We were talking on our last episode about and there's agentic things that can go out and everybody's got a deep research mode now. They've all got a deep research mode.
This is true.
I think GPT-5 can't just be, and it chats better with you. It has to be built in right in that user interface. And it also does a bunch of other stuff.
Well, there is one other. Some are calling it the killer feature that Sam has started teasing. And
what's that?
Coming soon. So apparently, the next GPT 4.0 release, maybe even 4.5, is going to have the ability to write erotica for the first time ever. Now you wish you had that $200 a month subscription.
No, I wouldn't say that that's the killer feature for me, but I would say that this is Sam Altman realizing that a lot of people who wanted to be writing erotica with the help of an AI model already can do that for free with a bunch of other models that you can just sort of download. And so I think it's just an attempt to regain some market share, right?
Yeah, I don't think it's actually about the erotica. If you want this to be the
one-stop shop.
I don't think it's actually about the erotica at all. I think that's just the headline that people are using. What it's more like
less restrictive in general.
Previously, the content that it's been delivering has been targeted at sort of a PG to PG-13 area, and you're going to have the ability, to go in and say, hey, you know what? Up to R rated is okay. Don't go past R. We're not doing any triple X nonsense, but up to R. That's the next giant release coming in 2026. Right.
Whenever you sign into ChatGPT, are you going to now have to verify your age? Perhaps
it's entirely.
If it's going to let you write some really naughty stuff, I think there has to then, because as far as not just OpenAI, but a bunch of these other companies have been concerned, many of the releases over the last, let's call it a couple of years or so, have been more and more tuned toward that squeaky clean sort of image because they don't want to get more sued than they currently are. They're mostly being sued for stealing a lot of data, rightfully so, but they don't want to also be sued for minors using their program being exposed to naughty stuff, for example. Well, now, if you're going to open up those floodgates, like, you've got to ask, hey, I'm going to write some really raunchy stuff. You're 18, right?
I actually think in their documentation, they're suggesting they're only going to release this feature to the API, to the developers, because everyone knows they're twisted anyways.
Right.
The actual ChatGPT users at this point aren't going to get access to this. But one AI model that's known for its loose morals, Elon Musk's Grok, a more uncensored.
This one with a K.
With a K,
Grok. Right, because there's two Groks out there. Grok isn't Elon Musk's, and it doesn't have the same, let's call it, issues.
But Elon and XAI, I believe is the name of the company that they put behind their AI models, released a new version of Grok, which there was a lot of fanfare about, that this was going to be the new kind of reigning supreme model. It's the first model from them trained on their massive data center.
Yeah,
I believe they have over
10 times the size of what they did for Grok 2, I think.
Yeah, over, I think, 100,000 NVIDIA H100s. And since then,
what would that cost? Roughly $1 gajillion, I think?
It's in that ballpark.
Because one H100 is that the like 30,000?
No, that's I think it's like $133,000, something in that range.
And they've got 100,000 of those. No, I'm sure you're getting
now they have 200,000. They have 200,000 now, and then they're building another one of these data centers. Anyways, the new model came out. It did on the what's the chat arena where you're looking at?
I think.
Yes,
one of them. Yeah.
So it is the number one ranking model on that leaderboard. That is their one claim to fame. And so if you've never used this, you go and you just ask a question and you don't know which model is answering, but you get two responses back and you choose which of the two you think is better. And so it's there's a lot of, I guess I was going to say it's fairly objective. There's a lot of subjectivity in deciding which response you think better, but it is the top performing model currently on that leaderboard. So I want to give it credit.
Allegedly. I'm going to say allegedly because some guy on Reddit, which no one would ever just go lie on the internet, supposedly says that Elon might have a person on the inside with a bit of vested interest of maybe juicing the numbers a little bit. No idea if that's actually true or not. But right, it is supposedly doing really, really well on all of these leaderboards. And these leaderboards aren't just... so these leaderboards that the various large language models out there are being subjected to are from two sort of different worlds. One is a bunch of pre-made data sets that companies totally aren't, wink, wink, training to do really well on. And then the other side is the arena, where sort of like for like chess players, you have an elo of how well you perform like compared to other people. Same kind of thing of you just put two large language models sets of outputs to a question that you ask of it, and then you say, I like this one better, or I like this one better. And then depending on after, thousands of people ask it thousands of different kinds of things, one sort of filters up toward the top. And that is where Grok 3 is allegedly outperforming everybody right now.
Yes.
Well, everybody, depending on how right now we're also talking about, because also we just mentioned GPT 4.5 or 5 or one of the 4.0 versions, supposedly a new version of 4.0 also just got up on there and is also at the top. So depending on who you're asking or when you're asking it, we've got a kind of neck and neck race right now.
So I think technically now everyone has access to Grok 3, but there was a brief period of exclusivity, and I, of course, handed over my credit card to get access. And
you have to be on Twitter and have the diamond, platinum, plus medallion.
Yeah, like at least 3 check marks. But
right,
it's not great. Like, so it's
okay. So you're saying this isn't the number one model?
It's not. I did not like the output. It was not helpful. I was using it for programming tasks and business tasks and writing things.
Well, they have their own deep research mode too, and big brain mode.
They do. So that was not enabled yet when I tested it.
Okay, all right.
I was unable
you got the small brain.
I was unable to trigger the big brain mode, and I do have an idea that they may have called that something else at one point. But it doesn't compare. So models I really like right now: O3 Mini High from OpenAI, Claude 3.5. Those are my defaults. Trying to do something technical models.
Right.
GPT-4o when I'm just looking for a quick answer. And O1 Pro when I'm trying to come up with a strategy for something. If the task that I'm looking for is, I don't want you to actually do something, but I want you to come up with a strategy for how to do it, which I'm then going to feed into a lesser powerful model. O1 Pro is my default.
That's a planner model.
Planner,
for you.
Yeah. And
how is the average person supposed to do? Because we're not the average person. We're willing to sign up for a whole bunch of different AI services and use them for very specific kind of use cases. Is the hope that there is one model, or you mentioned like GPT-5 maybe being a router that goes to a bunch of different sort of flavors of the same-ish thing, for people who aren't willing to sign up for 8 different AI services? Is it just that we have to say you don't really have the exact right tool for every job, but you have kind of a one-size-fits-all? Or is the hope that maybe through different routers that have access to a bunch of different models, that you will have the average person able to get the really good planner and the really good coder and the really good other thing, and so on and so forth?
I mean, the default will continue to get better. Being at if what you want is to always have the latest and the greatest, that's always going to require work and knowledge in any sector. Oh, you want the latest and greatest in computer hardware, but hold on, why doesn't the random HP ThinkPad Notebook 14? It can't do everything I ever wanted to do at lightning speed? No, like, if that's what you want, you gotta live at the cutting edge. But the solution for the masses will continue to get better. Sure. And there's a pretty big gap between the solution for the masses today and the actual cutting edge. But the actual cutting edge requires knowledge of all of these models, knowledge of how they all like to be prompted, because they like to be prompted differently. If you're going with the reasoning model, or you're trying to come up with a plan, or you're trying to do something with these massive context windows to analyze tons of data, there are different models that you need to route to and how you need to form it and submit the data.
And that's changing constantly as well.
It's maddening.
It honestly is. I love these technologies, and oh my God, it is so hard to keep up. Case in point, I always talk about Klein because I love using it to help me with coding. It just got an update. I'm happy about it, don't get me wrong, but it's like, oh my God, okay, another sort of iteration on this thing, where it will now make what are called mermaid diagrams.
Yes.
And it doesn't look like...
I think I told you about mermaid diagrams before.
I'd never heard of them.
That was one of my secrets.
You told me about mermaid diagrams, and I said, ooh, neat. And now Klein...
And apparently you told Klein, because that was between us.
Sorry, I didn't mean to let the cat out of the bag. But now, when it's in planning mode, speaking of like, you can have a different... I'm just going to plan as opposed to I'm going to actually do the coding. And you ask it, like, give me sort of an overarching idea of how to accomplish this task. It'll show you a diagram of what that would look like, which is neat. And this is all still using... Now, granted, you can have it use a bunch of different models, but the sort of default and assumption is that you're using Anthropic's Claude 3.5 Sonnet, which in LLM age is absolutely ancient. It's been around for getting close to a year now. Truly wild that is still one of the ones where I'm like, this is my workhorse large language model, when OpenAI has come out with about 160 variations of their thing in that intervening amount of time.
Yeah.
Am I like grasping for some stability in this world, because I am using something that allegedly isn't as good as like your O3s from OpenAI or O1 or even maybe this alleged latest version of GPT-4o. Even if those are a little bit better, I have a tool that is supposed to, it's most tuned toward using this one specific model, and I get a tremendous amount of value out of that. Maybe I could get a little bit more value if I tweak a bunch of things and I change the way that I prompt it and I select this other model and I'm willing to let it go a little slower because it's the really thinky model. Like, I think that as you're describing people who are on the cutting edge versus not, I like to think of myself as cutting edge, but I'm purposely not doing the actual cutting edge.
You're like 2 weeks behind, and it's right. Ridiculous.
I want to be using something that I know I can keep using the same way and getting the benefits thereof months from now. Because it is somewhat exhausting to say, I have to now, to just keep doing my regular work, tweak 5 different little things to kind of keep going forward. Another point along that same line, like I'm using a Visual Studio Code extension, like a little sub-program called Klein, hooked up to Anthropic's Claude model. There's other forks of VS Code called like Continue, for example, or Cursor.sh. There's variations of that same thing where allegedly more built into just the workflow in general. It has the AI assistance. And I haven't even tried either of those things that I just mentioned. I'm aware of them. I haven't even bothered because I found something that works for me. It's good enough. And that, as it relates to like the masses, I think that most people don't need or even want to have 5 iterations of the almost same thing from their perspective. Maybe just using ChatGPT doesn't plan as well as this one and this one and this one kind of chained together. But I think most folks are unwilling to go to that amount of bother. We just want the one thing that's going to actually help us.
Yeah, I don't know that I have a good answer as a default for how do you balance that that discovery process of, hey, should I just continue using the technology that I have, or should I spend some time doing a search, breadth first or depth first or whatever?
Yeah. And we've also talked a lot about, of course, OpenAI, because that's the mind share. That's the sort of default that people think of for AI these days. But there also are, like, there's Mistral, or you could go to Anthropic and talk to Claude specifically, or Google Gemini, or Grok, I guess, or any of these other models. Like, those are other places you can go to just chat with a large language model. And I think by default, people still go to ChatGPT. And maybe that's why Sam Altman is kind of signing off on, okay, it can talk a little raunchier now. We don't want people downloading their own model and not using our product. We want people to still go to just us first, foremost, and forever.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of the reason why we explore all these new models is because we enjoy it. Like, it's fun for us. And I completely understand how for some people it's not fun. And there is also, I guess what I'll broadly describe as alpha in this. Like, there's edge to be had if you understand all of these things. You can accomplish more. Right. If you're competing with someone who's not using any models at all, like I'm not even into that sort of ChatGPT stuff. The amount of work that you can get done in comparison to the amount of work that they can get done in a lot of things. Some things, I don't know, building a house, or they can still compete with you. But for a lot of the
for my work, I mean, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I've had the most productive month of my life in a day multiple times now. Not like once and it was a one-off. I mean, like, fairly regularly. Oh, problem I have goes away. It's just gone now. And this would have taken me like a week to figure out.
Yeah.
And these become extremely surmountable problems. Now,
so I don't think you can ignore it, but I don't think you need to be on the cutting edge. We had there's a story about how most CFO job descriptions now note that they expect you to be up to date on AI as a CFO.
Right, CFO, Chief Financial Officer.
This is not technical.
Right. This is some guy who handles the money for a business needs to be aware of, fluent in, proficient with using AI. And it's AI kind of in general. Various terms are popping up on the job recs, I guess, out there. But I think what it kind of boils down to is like, if you're going to help run this company, you need to be aware of the benefits that this can bring, the cost that it entails, and possibly be using it to help with your own work as well.
Right, like there was a time when everyone would put Microsoft Office on their resume. Oh, I'm proficient in Microsoft Office. Right. I can do a Word document, but they really probably like didn't know much about Excel. And they're like, please don't ask me an Excel question. But if you need to make like the word bold in Word, I'm your man.
Have you seen, as a total aside here, that there are championships for Microsoft Excel?
Yes, I have.
For those of you listening, if you haven't looked this up, please go on YouTube.
It's on YouTube, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. Go on YouTube and just search like World Championships Microsoft Excel. And there's like competitions where you'll see there's a crowd of people and they're cheering. And there's a couple of dudes at computers and like a screen that shows this is like the task. It's, I don't know, sort this data in a way or change all of these things to a color based on their whatever. And then people whose fingers are flying so fast it looks like something out of a movie where the hacker is hacking into the mainframe and just wham, their fingers are flying over these keyboards. And they're doing stuff that, to me, as far as like Excel is concerned, absolute wizardry. Like I couldn't do any one of these things, and they're accomplishing bam, 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 like thing after thing after thing. I think this actually makes me think of AI. I think that there is a point where human expertise forever will outperform AI. We've talked about like when it comes to art or when it comes to this, is it going to make certain jobs obsolete? I think for a lot of lower level employees, and this has also been mentioned here before, like junior developers in trouble right now. But for those elites, for the people who are like, I can Excel better than anyone at Excel, any large language model will be slow enough to the point where it can't do that many things that quickly. I think we're always going to have somebody who's better than the computer at whatever that thing is. And granted, that might be only the tiniest slice of the top % of Excel users or what have you. But there's always going to be room for human excellence. I really do think so.
I mean, obviously, in the world of chess or in the world of Go, we had those theories at one point, and they were,
you know what? That's fair.
Pretty quickly dismissed. And I was trying to, you can make the argument that Excel is another level above a game of Go.
Sure.
But I don't know.
Well, how about for like science, I guess you could say. There are more people who are using your programs like AlphaFold to do folding of proteins to help discover potential drugs more quickly. And I think that especially as like the context sizes grow larger for these models, they can look at more text and kind of keep the knowledge of it in place. You could say, here are 100 of the latest research papers, identify the gaps between them, and then give me a research plan of like, and this will push the state of the art forward. Those are still tools, but I think you kind of still need a person to be the last step, that last mile of synthesizing the data into something real coming out. Is that true, or do you think that we really just need to make the context size a little bit bigger, give it a robot arm that can hold beakers, and then science is solved?
I think it is definitely true today, if you want to leverage all these tools, because you can leverage these tools to do better science, to do better technology, to do better, social studies, etc. Because we haven't achieved AGI, we haven't achieved artificial general intelligence, we haven't achieved artificial superintelligence. But I think by definition, once we achieve those, then it should be able to, on its own, perhaps like even
by definition, right?
Yeah,
it isn't not AGI only unless it can do all of these
make
things.
The breakthrough, but decide that, you know what, I should look for a breakthrough in this area. I'm going to spend the next 10 parsnips to come up with the next great. I don't know. I was going to try to say something funny, but all the funny just drained out. But something funny, make it funny.
When it comes to AI art, the US currently is of the mind that as long as a person was like materially involved, you can actually get a copyright on an image that had a lot of AI kind of generating it. You have to do a bunch of nudging, and you can do regional prompting and this and this and the other thing, but you can still get like a copyright on it. I think that we are going to get to a point where, and I've kind of talked about this before, where is it GPT-5? Is it, Claude 5 or 4 or whatever? There's going to be a point where for any person, you would have said they would have gotten a PhD out of this specific thing that they wrote, or a Nobel Prize. And like at a point, these are going to be churned out, pushing forward the bounds of human knowledge, where it's not really just the bounds of human knowledge anymore. It's an AI figured out, here's an advancement in this field. And then I even built on that advancement, made another advancement. And like, is that where we start having to give out Nobel Prizes to LLMs or a PhD or whatever? And right, is that, I don't know if we have to call that a GI, because it is not necessarily doing every kind of task that a person could do. But I do think that like we're right on that cusp of such a high level of productivity and basically invention that it becomes really hard to justify this had to have a person behind it who gets all the credit.
I mean, I guess that'll be a decision for the Nobel laureate board of directors to decide whether this is an award to humans making advancements, or this is just, or we're going to include if the technology made the advancement too. And I would imagine it would start having two separate awards, and then maybe at some point it merges. Sure. But I don't think that we should stop celebrating advancements in humanity and advancements driven by humans. I don't think that's going to all of a sudden go away just because we have artificial general intelligence or super intelligence that's coming up with advancements as well.
Just have Nobel 2 on the side. Yeah.
Yeah, Nobel, yeah, AI, Nobel GPT, whatever. Nobel 5.
Right. You have to subscribe for $200 a month to get access to the other Nobel Prizes. I think this is going to be one of my better segues, sort of in general. But we're getting, depending on when you're listening to this, we're getting close to tax season. And tax season, my favorite time of year. I'm kidding. It is my least favorite time of year. But suppose that it was. Being able to fill out one's taxes properly and send it off and make sure that you're not accidentally defrauding the US government and going to get audited and possibly thrown in jail and so on. Really stressless, fun time of year, I think, for basically everybody. This could be made better, right? Like, obviously, there are some grander talks of lots of other countries just do it for you and tell you how much you owe, and it's all much more automatic than we have here in the US. Sort of glossing over that point, though, the IRS, as things currently stand, has this enormous task of make sure people aren't doing a whole bunch of fraud. And I feel like looking at a tremendous number of financial documents for individual people to make sure that they did the right amount of money for the right things under the right circumstances and filled out form such and such -B was all correct. That feels like something that's really, really suited for AI. And by AI, I mostly mean traditional machine learning, not have GPT-4 look at it. But
fraud
the
detection.
IRS, fraud detection, right. And that can come from a bunch of like individual features or metadata associated with all these forms that you fill in.
It's used a lot in credit cards. Credit card companies have fraud detection. They have all sorts of different models.
Yeah, they've been doing that for quite some time.
Sure.
And it doesn't have to be a person looks at every credit card transaction that you do. That would be just it. Like, you can't scale up to that point. I've every now and then, like, oh, I bought gas from an unusual place. It got declined. I get a text 20 seconds later. Hey, was this really you? That's using machine learning. Why not have the IRS do that? I'm sure they've already been doing something, but the IRS, the article that we were looking at here, said that the IRS is going to get a superpod AI cluster, which is not just one server, it's 31 servers from NVIDIA with like the latest and greatest processors and GPUs and whatever put into them. I I don't know. I like the idea. Now, granted, I want the IRS basically to go away to the point where all the money just automatically is you had your taxes taken out, the correct amount, and you didn't have to fill out a bunch of forms. I don't think that this is necessarily the step on the way there because we are within the system that we have. But I'd like the idea of the IRS being able to more efficiently do the sort of tasks that they're doing, because this is one of those tasks that feels perfectly suited to AI. How do you feel about the IRS being able to comb through things perhaps a little bit faster or more efficiently? Is this just good, or is it because they're the boogeyman, we kind of don't want to give them the tools to look at things more closely?
Yeah, not a huge fan of the IRS in general. I don't know if we should say that like live on the. It's like, all right, now you're getting audited.
I don't think we're required to like taxes.
That's acceptable.
Yeah, so far.
I don't know that I hate the idea of taxes in general. I just have first-handedly experienced some inefficiencies with the IRS, all which eventually were worked out to, on my side. Like, yes, things were correct, but it took like multiple years and conversations with lawyers, et cetera, to settle something that from my side seemed absolutely obvious and incredibly simple. Here are 3 numbers. There's nothing else to consider. 3 numbers. Well, the 3 numbers. And eventually someone said, oh, it's just the 3 numbers. Yes. Right. Oh yeah, you're good. You don't owe anything. Everything's good. So anyways, some hesitations there. But the thing that popped in my head is we currently, at a minimum, have an idea, and at I guess at a maximum, are really doing it. There's a drive in the United States to become a real leader in AI, and potentially to continue our leadership in AI. And if that is a goal for our country to be, I don't know, yeah, sure, the leader in AI, shouldn't we start trying to integrate this technology with our government that runs the country? And shouldn't, as we just talked about, one, it seems like CFOs now need to have a level of proficiency with AI. Shouldn't we bring those expectations to all of the different arms of government? And shouldn't they all have access to large clusters of fancy GPUs so that they can build their own models? And shouldn't we be putting that type of talent into the government if we truly want a country that is leveraging this tech and pushing this tech to its maximum degree? So from that angle, yes, the IRS should absolutely have access to a supercomputer and the access to the people that are able to leverage that technology to build them tools to make them more efficient. So that, yeah, we could potentially have a smaller government, and that we could potentially run it more efficiently. We could potentially pay less taxes because there's less overhead in living in an incredible country. So I think from that angle, yes. From my own pettiness, no, IRS cannot have fancy GPUs.
Conceptually, we like the idea of empowering government agencies to like do things with more efficiency, with more AI. I mean, if you really want to say, basically the ability to look at a large amount of data that's coming into a government agency and churn through that quicker, faster, presumably and hopefully more accurately. Like, I definitely like that idea. But right, we don't, nobody likes the IRS. And I feel bad for anyone working at the IRS who's listening to this, but it's pretty true, because no one really likes to have that boogeyman sort of hovering over their shoulder. I don't know. Are there other parts of the government, capital T, capital G, the government, that you think would really benefit from having way more machine learning? I'm not going to say AI, I said machine learning than currently exists, because I feel like the IRS is basically the absolute most obvious case of look at a tremendous amount of data where you need to look at 30, 50 documents per person, make sure all these numbers add up in a right way, you're doing fraud detection, same thing that the credit card companies are doing. Does the postal office need a NVIDIA supercluster? Other than for trying to understand my chicken scratch of where I'm trying to send a letter. But understanding how there's already a lot of work that goes into understanding that. Those systems already exist. I don't know if the rest of the Postal Service needs one of these big clusters, for example.
Well, I mean, the obvious. So the U.S. Postal Service lost over, I think it's like $9 billion last year. So they don't make any money. They lost.
Right. If you think of it as a business, you could say it lost. Really, it's that much money goes into a service that is being provided at the sort of federal level. Previous
year, they had lost like $6.2 billion. So it's gone up substantially. And one of the reasons is because people are using the post office less and less, right? Who writes a letter and puts a stamp on it these days? We deliver packages. And by the way, like 90% of the stuff I receive is pure garbage. Like, and literally, I don't even bring it to the house. Yeah. I slam it into the trash can. It's very rare that, and it's usually a big stack of things, and like maybe one like little note card makes its way into the house, and everything else slam into the trash. So it's a deeply broken system, I guess is my point. And it is not worthy of us losing $9 billion, if you want my point of view. And I'm not saying that we should abolish it, but I am saying that we need to figure out a way to run it much more efficiently. And I think that way of running
learning the way to do that, though. That's the point that I'm trying to get at, is where in the government is ML going to be helping? If we're looking for efficiency in the post office, I do think that like there's something that can be done, but I don't think maybe you could try to make the routes a little bit more efficient or something. That's kind of the traveling salesman problem. And you could save however many gallons of fuel a year. Like, okay, sure, there's something there, but I don't think that that's like the ideal place for it. Maybe there's something to do with like U.S. Customs for, if they're doing like X-rays of semis coming through to make sure that they're not packed full of people or drugs or what have you. I think that there is a machine learning component to like automatically identifying things coming through like at the border, or maybe as it relates to like shipping sort of in general in ports, not just like trucks coming across the border, but like at a port, a zillion shipping containers, and being able to see what's in those and like more efficiently understand what's coming into or leaving the country. There might be something there, but
I mean, go back to the post office. So first, obviously, their pricing models need work. I would suggest that all that crap that I'm throwing away, if those companies want to send me all that crap all the time, they should be paying a lot more than whatever they're paying now. And do people want it? Like, by the way, like, I don't. It doesn't need to be just me, but my suggestion is that most people don't want to see all that stuff. And apparently, the U.S. taxpayers are losing a tremendous amount of money. Like, we're paying money I'm paying to receive all that junk. And that's just, there's something wrong there. And so like that needs to look at, and I don't accept that we're already routing and optimizing our mail delivery in the most efficient way possible. Why? Because there hasn't been some giant technology approach to look at it. And in general, when you do those things, you do find more efficient approaches. And where do we need people? Where is there room for automation? How are we actually delivering? Like, all the logistics is absolutely a machine learning problem. And what is the United States Post Office but logistics?
I think UPS and Amazon and FedEx, like, they surely have a lot of machine learning that goes into figuring out the most efficient way to get packages from A to B. And there presumably is already something for the post office. I'm just wondering, like, do they need these really big GPU enabled clusters of like the same sort of data centers that are powering your GPT-4s and so on? Because if we want to make mail better, what we need is one of those cool tubes that you'd see at like the bank, and just that goes to your house and you just hear thump and bam, there's your mail for the day. That would be cool. I would agree tubes.
They're not the top of the priority list, but I do think that if we want to be the world leader in AI, and we want our country to reap the benefits of AI, and to make us have a better country, a more efficient country, a country where more people can prosper, et cetera, then yeah, it should be part of the strategy. I don't think it's the first thing. Probably the first thing is our various departments of defense and the armed services. That seems like an obvious area. And again, I'm sure they already leverage a ton of technology, but they should have massive access to massive supercomputers.
And are you talking more from like a data synthesis, we're using this to like figure out where to deploy troops perspective? Or is this, because you mentioned logistics, like if you're trying to save money as opposed to, I guess, do more, Is that trying to, oh, we have too many tanks, stop ordering them, like that kind of thing.
So yeah, supply chain management. Yeah, that's definitely part of it.
Right.
Supply chain resiliency. Not that we ever did anything in that area. Yeah, I guess there's a list, and I would like to see more departments in the government leveraging technology and being, rather than where the general perspective is that the government is far behind in its application of technology. Maybe with an exception in the armed services, where we do have some idea that they're getting the latest and greatest tech. I honestly don't have enough experience to tell you whether that's legit or not legit, but most branches of the government, our assumption is that they're operating on 50-year-old tech in general. And
historically, they don't pay as well as the private sector. And so all of the best programmers who want to work on the coolest and latest things that don't have nearly as much red tape stopping you from using latest and greatest things don't go to the government.
Yeah, but I think it's more than that. There are definitely a lot of programmers and engineers who are very money motivated because it's in general a well-paying position. But I've met a lot that aren't, and they like really aren't. And I think it's more the attitude. Again, okay, like if you told me I could go and change everything about the DMV and reimagine it all and make
DMV, now we're talking.
Well, right. Nobody wants to go work at the DMV because I don't want to go work on 50-year-old tech and deal with a bunch of bureaucracy and be stopped at every moment and have, yellow tape around red tape around purple tape stopping me from doing anything. Mm-hmm. But if we said, no, like we want to build the most modern, most advanced future DMV where 99% of the people that currently come to the DMV to accomplish a task they don't have to do it. And in fact, it can be automated. Like you just like check a box, like just automate my DMV stuff for me, and like don't bother me. And when you do bother me, an AI agent reaches out and has a conversation.
I'm excited about this. I think that like the post office thing, I want it to be like it's not supposed to be. It's the lost leader, It's the Costco selling the hot dogs for
Pony Express.
Yeah, well, no, I want to be able to send quickly and knowing that it's going to show up somewhere for however many cents a stamp. Like, I want to be able to send something somewhere easily, cheaply, effectively. I'm very glad that exists, and I know that it costs more than it brings in. Fine with that. But the DMV, you bring that up. Yes, I think that we should just tear the whole damn thing down, get a couple NVIDIA superclusters, AI, something. I'm kind of for those of you not watching, I'm literally waving my hand like, I don't know, do something. The DMV absolutely feels like there's a lot of data that can be synthesized that could have, let's even call it large language models. Why not? Oh, you're trying to renew your registration. Well, form, I already filled it out for you. You double check it. That looks good. Great. Done. We'll just mail you through the post office your new registration. Like, wow, that doesn't need to have someone stand in line for 6 hours to then fill out the one form and hand it over to a person and so on.
Yeah,
I'm down for this. Absolutely.
If there needs to be a cultural shift, but if there was that cultural shift existed, I believe that the people would want to participate in that. I think in general, like people do want to contribute to their community. They want to make a better place for everyone. And yeah, some people just want to live in the giant mansion, and cool. You can be that person, or you can be the person that's just really about lifting everyone else up and like making the world that you want to live in. I think there's a lot of people that want to do that, but there isn't the opportunity today to do that. I don't want to say there's not the opportunity, but there's not enough opportunity today to do that.
Are you sort of suggesting that there is a world in which there's a Newsweek magazine that comes out and it has someone's face on it, says the man who saved the DMV, and like that's basically a national hero at that point, right? If we could take a part of our lives, especially as it like relates to interacting with the government, and we just make that way better, way easier, way faster, way more efficient, cheaper, whatever it ends up being, and like everyone materially agrees this used to be bad and now it's not. And yeah, that's someone that you could absolutely be like championing. There's going to be parades for somebody that fixes the DMV. And some of that comes down to just like we're using more modern technology in general and you look for more efficiency or this or that. But I do think that certain sectors of, whether it be government or we also talk a lot about like our lives in general, we can be using machine learning to speed things up, to make it more efficient, to accomplish more in a smaller amount of time, or even using the same number of people, even using, if we have these browser use type models, even use the 50-year-old software, but put a nice layer on top of it that makes it faster, makes it more efficient, makes you able to do things more.
Yeah. I'm reminded of a company I worked for a long time ago. Used to not be able to, in general, apply for jobs on your phone. And so what we did was build an interaction layer where we would stand up a website that was friendly for your phone. And then behind the scenes, we were using the old website, just automating the interactions with the old fashioned website that required you had to be running Internet Explorer 4.0 and scripted it all out, but bringing that modern experience to people. But I still think in these scenarios, we need more of a kind of ground up rethinking rather than let's just patch something together to improve.
Sure. The banking system is semi-famously built on top of extremely old software that we keep having to drag some guy out of retirement because he's the one dude who still knows COBOL to be like, please help fix this system. That feels like something that is ripe for modernization through the application of these newer technologies.
Yeah, especially if you can just vibe code the whole thing.
Right. Redo the entire U.S. banking system. All right.
All right.
And then you just trust the AI
30 minutes later.
With no bugs, no security vulnerabilities. It's probably fine. Yeah, 30 minutes later, I stood up a website. It's the banking system now.
I use Replit.
Yeah. Hey, I've been hearing a lot about this thing called the blockchain. What if we let's put the whole damn thing on that?
Yeah. That's where we're going. We're not there yet, but that's where we're going. And we are there. We're there probably more than you think.
Wasn't Argentina, I think, trying to do like our actual monetary system is blockchain based? There's a country that was like actively trying this sort of thing.
Yes.
Not to say they're replacing their currency with it, but I do think that the intent is modernize that banking infrastructure.
They adopted Bitcoin as like an official currency. That was part of their play. And as a Bitcoin maximalist, I approve this message.
It's not going up, and it hasn't been for quite some time because I bought some again.
Is that what's going on?
Yeah, if I have Bitcoin, it can't go up.
Because I thought, like, hey, this is also, it's the AI administration. It's also the Bitcoin administration. Isn't it supposed to, like, quadruple or 10x or something? But no, it's
me specifically. The fact that I have any
like,
Bitcoin.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. It's been hovering around that same price, but I'm firm, like, obviously this is not really me, but truly any time that I'm like, I'll buy some Bitcoin, it doesn't go up. It usually goes down. And so I'm doing my part to help bring that cost back down by holding on to any Bitcoin whatsoever.
This is not investment advice.
No. In general, you should do the opposite of what I do for investment advice.
And
you should. I would use AI for that, right?
Yes, I would think that you should use AI to help you with your investment. It's one of my projects. It's on like the very long backlog of things that I need to investigate more to modernize my investment strategies leveraging AI.
Maybe we'll tell you all about that in our next episode.
The next episode, it's coming sooner than you can imagine, sooner than GPT-5. That's our promise to you. The next episode will be out before GPT-5. And if you want to know the latest and the greatest, you want to stay on that cutting edge, the bleeding edge, understand what the real nerds are talking about, well, hit the subscribe button, give us a like, give us a comment, give us a little input. You can be a part of this show, this community. What should we be leveraging all of these new AI abilities on first? Like, what is the priority?
What is your favorite government organization?
Yeah, the U.S. can go beyond the government
office. I don't know.
I mean, that's part of what we were discussing on the show. Is like, hey, there's all this great technology, but we're also trying to do these things. And when do we search and like look at the new stuff and where do we apply it?
How do we help with AI, with ML?
Yes, that's our question to you, listeners. Leave a comment, and we will be sure to address them and engage. And your best way of engaging is, subscribing to the show because it's free and it's cheap, it's easy, and hopefully it's at least a little bit fun, whether you're watching on YouTube, listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or really any podcast directory. We are there, and just around the corner you will be too as you listen to a new episode of...
They might be self-aware.